Welcome to today's deep dive. Um, our mission today is to really unpack a massive, tectonic shift that's happening in the UK housing market right now.
Right, as we move through spring 2026.
Exactly. We're talking about the Renters' Rights Act.
Which is, it's a legislative overhaul that fundamentally rewrites the entire relationship between property owners and the people who actually live in those properties.
Yeah, it really does. But, we aren't just reading through dry government press releases today.
Yeah, thankfully.
We are looking at this through a highly specific and honestly very revealing lens. We actually got our hands on an internal protection guide.
A fascinating document.
It really is. It was written back in October 2025 by a property management company called Houseshare Heroes.
Right.
And it's basically a behind-the-scenes playbook. It shows exactly how the landlord industry has been, well, frantically scrambling to adapt to a law that shifts the balance of power firmly over to you, the renter.
Absolutely. But before we get too deep into the weeds here, I think it is important to state up front that housing rights are incredibly contentious.
Oh, heavily debated.
Right. It's a politically charged topic, and rightly so, because, it's about where we live, our basic security, and on the other side, how people invest their capital.
Exactly.
So our goal today is not to endorse this new law, nor are we here to, endorse the specific strategies these landlords are using to navigate it.
Yeah, we're not taking sides at all.
Right. We are simply going to impartially explore the factual contents of this corporate guide. We just want to understand the chess moves happening in the rental sector right now, looking objectively at the cause and effect of the legislation.
Okay, with that established, I really want to jump straight to the single most shocking detail I found in this playbook.
Let's hear it.
Because I think this entirely changes the game for you as a renter. Under these new rules, just imagine you finally get the keys to your new apartment. It's March 1st. You unlock the front door, you drop your moving boxes in the hallway, and before you even unpack your toothbrush, you pull out your phone.
Right.
And you send an email to your landlord giving your official notice to move out.
Wow.
That exact same day. And you can now lawfully pack up and leave by May 1st. 2 months total.
It is a complete inversion of how the rental market has historically functioned.
Totally upside down.
I mean, the entire concept of being locked into a property for a set period is it's gone.
Just wiped out.
And to understand the sheer panic running through this property management guide, we really have to look at the structural change that makes your scenario possible.
Right, because this whole day one notice thing, it doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Precisely. It is the result of two simultaneous legal shifts. So first, the Renters' Rights Act completely abolishes Section 21.
Which were those highly controversial no-fault evictions, right?
Yes, where a landlord could ask you to leave without giving any reason at all.
Huge win for renters.
It is. But the other side of that coin, and this is the part that triggers this massive financial anxiety for property owners, is that fixed-term tenancies are entirely abolished.
Wow, entirely.
Entirely. Every single tenancy now starts as what the industry calls periodic.
It essentially means a rolling contract from day one.
Exactly, from the very first day.
Wait, so if I'm understanding this correctly, the landlord has zero guarantee that I'm staying past 8 weeks.
Zero guarantee.
How do they even budget for that? Because, looking at the math laid out in the Houseshare Heroes guide, just getting a tenant through the front door is incredibly expensive.
It is. And in a traditional model, a landlord relies on a 12-month fixed term to, amortize or spread out those initial setup costs.
Right, spread the hit over a year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without that 12-month guarantee, the math suddenly looks very precarious.
Oh, yeah.
The guide breaks it down pound by pound. First, a landlord is spending between £400 and £600 just on sourcing a tenant and running the referencing checks.
Just for the background checks and finding the person.
Yes.
And then they have to do the inventory, which is another, £100 to £150?
Yeah.
And we all know what that looks like, paying a clerk to walk through the empty property.
Yeah.
Taking high-resolution photos of, every single scuff mark on the baseboards.
Every single one. Testing every light switch.
Noting the exact condition of the oven racks.
Yeah.
It takes hours.
Exactly. Then you add on another £150 for mandatory compliance.
Like gas safety certificates?
Gas safety, your professional cleaning, the administrative onboarding.
Right.
So before you even spend your first night sleeping in that property, the landlord has sunk between $700 and well over £1,000 into setting up your tenancy.
Just to open the door for you.
Yeah.
And if I serve that 2-month notice on the very first day, those margins aren't just squeezed, they are entirely wiped out.
Completely gone.
And the guide makes it clear that this impact is heavily multiplied for HMOs, right? Houses in multiple occupation.
Oh, massively multiplied.
Because if you are managing, say, a 5-bedroom shared house, and individual renters are legally cycling in and out every 2 or 3 months,
The administrative load is just...
it becomes exponential. You're doing that 1,000-pound setup 5 different times for 5 different rooms.
It's a logistical nightmare for them.
It's like an airline paying for the aviation fuel, the flight crew, and all the catering for a transatlantic flight. But the passenger is legally allowed to parachute out 5 minutes after takeoff.
And demand a prorated refund.
Exactly. How does an industry based on long-term stability function when its primary product can legally become a 2-month pop-up arrangement?
Well, that is the exact question driving every single strategy in this document.
I mean, it has to be.
Right. If we connect this to the broader concept of risk management, a business simply cannot survive if its core asset is fundamentally unpredictable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So landlords are desperately trying to figure out how to protect that 1,000-pound upfront investment without, breaking the new rules.
Right.
And since the law explicitly allows tenants to leave almost immediately, property managers are deploying some highly creative workarounds to control the timeline and mitigate that churn.
Yeah, I was absolutely fascinated by how they are trying to regain that control, because one of their major tactics isn't legal at all. It's purely psychological.
It's fascinating.
The playbook instructs property managers to use what they call an intention to stay clause.
Right.
They are physically writing phrases into the tenancy agreements that say, and I quote, "The tenant confirms their intention to occupy the property for at least 6 months."
Yes.
But the guide explicitly notes right there in the text that this clause is not legally binding.
It's not at all.
So I have to ask, if everyone involved knows this clause is explicitly legally meaningless, isn't it just an elaborate bluff?
Basically, yes.
I mean, they are relying on a psychological anchor to stop people from exercising legal right.
It is absolutely a behavioral nudge. From a strict legal standpoint, you are correct. It has no teeth whatsoever. If a tenant signs that piece of paper and then leaves in 2 months anyway, the landlord cannot sue them for breach of contract.
Because the new law overrides it.
Exactly. But human beings are inherently social creatures. Psychologically, we generally try to adhere to commitments we've made in writing, even if they aren't, legally enforceable.
Oh, that makes total sense. We feel guilty.
Right. By forcing the tenant to acknowledge a 6-month intention, the landlord is attempting to establish a social contract where a legal one is no longer permitted.
Wow. So they are trying to filter out the hypertransient applicants right at the front door.
Precisely. They're asking up front during the screening phase how long the applicant intends to stay.
They're sneaky.
And they're looking closely at their previous rental history to spot short-term mindsets, but they also know psychology only goes so far.
Right. A bluff only works until someone calls it.
Exactly. So they're moving from psychological nudges to actual financial incentives.
Yeah.
If you cannot legally penalize someone for leaving early, the only logical pivot is to reward them for staying.
Carrots instead of sticks. The guide outlines some very specific incentives, actually, like offering a discounted rent rate after you hit the 6-month mark, or offering a complimentary professional deep clean of the property after 12 months.
Yes.
And when you look at the math you laid out earlier, it makes total sense.
It's purely economical.
Right. Because paying a cleaning company £200 to scrub the bathrooms and the oven is vastly cheaper than absorbing another 1,000-pound setup cost because the tenant got fed up and moved out.
It is pure damage control.
Yeah.
But even with these incentives, the property managers know that increased churn is now just inevitable. The system is too fluid.
So what's their backup plan?
Well, Houseshare Heroes is aggressively advising landlords to build financial fortresses around their properties.
Financial fortresses, I like that.
They are recommending that landlords hold 1 full month's rent per property entirely in cash reserve, specifically to absorb the shock of these short-notice exits.
Wow. And they're also heavily pushing insurance products, right? Like rent guarantee and legal protection policies.
Yes. And this is where the actual mechanism of the industry is fundamentally adapting.
How so?
Historically, rent guarantee insurance was pretty straightforward because the tenant was locked in. Now, insurance underwriters are having to reprice their own risk.
Oh, because the rules changed.
Exactly. The policies landlords are buying are specifically designed to cover the terrifying window between a tenant stopping their rent payments and the landlord actually getting the property back.
Which takes longer now.
Right, because Section 21 is gone. Evicting a non-paying tenant now requires a different, potentially much slower court process.
So they have to hedge their bets.
Landlords are buying these policies to underwrite the new instability. It's an entire secondary ecosystem of insurance being built to plug the holes left by the abolished fixed-term contracts.
Okay, so landlords are desperately trying to maintain control over the financial timeline of the property. But reading further into the guide, it becomes pretty clear they are also losing control on another massive front.
Yes, they are.
The physical boundaries of the property itself. Because under this new act, it's not just the length of the tenancy that creates friction. It's who, or rather what, is allowed to cross the threshold. Let's talk about the new rules on pets.
Oh, this is a massive cultural and legal shift.
Huge.
Historically, landlords could issue a blanket no pets policy without a second thought.
No dogs allowed, end of story.
Exactly. Under the Renters' Rights Act, a landlord cannot unreasonably refuse a tenant's request to keep a pet.
Wow.
Furthermore, they are placed on a strict ticking clock. They must provide an answer to the request within 28 days.
And here's the part that really shifts the financial burden. They cannot charge higher deposits to cover potential scratched floors, and they cannot demand that the tenant take out specialized pet insurance.
Correct.
That's wild.
The financial risk of animal damage is entirely shifted back toward the property owner.
So the landlord just has to eat the cost if the dog ruins the carpet.
Basically, yes. However, this is where the Houseshare Heroes guide reveals some truly fascinating loopholes.
I was hoping we'd get to the loopholes.
Specifically when it comes to shared living spaces, those HMOs.
Yeah.
The guide points out that landlords can still refuse pets in shared houses, provided they supply written evidence based on a few very specific, legally defensible criteria.
The exemptions.
Yes. So a landlord can refuse if other existing tenants in the shared house have documented allergies or severe phobias.
Okay, that happens.
They can also refuse if there are shared kitchens, communal lounges, or shared gardens where the pet cannot be, quote-unquote, safely contained.
Safely contained.
Right. They can also refuse if the property's specific HMO license or the landlord's mortgage conditions explicitly prohibit pets, or if there are overarching health and safety concerns. In fact, Houseshare Heroes is implementing a bespoke pet request policy purely to navigate these exact loopholes, keeping their landlords compliant with the new law, while systematically keeping pets out of complex shared environments.
Okay, let me push back on that shared spaces exemption, though.
Go ahead.
Because if I'm a landlord and I just really, really hate dogs,
Right.
couldn't I easily weaponize the shared kitchen space rule as a blanket rejection?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who determines if a golden retriever can be, quote-unquote, safely contained in a communal lounge?
It's tricky.
It feels like a highly subjective gray area that a savvy property manager could use to just say no every single time, totally subverting the intention of the new law.
That is the exact friction point the industry is navigating right now, and it raises a critical question about the burden of proof.
Right.
Because the phrase safely contained is indeed subjective, but the key mechanism in the legislation, which the guide emphasizes heavily, is written evidence.
They have to prove it.
Exactly. The landlord cannot just say no on a whim. They have to articulate and document the refusal based on the physical reality of the property.
Oh, I see.
If a tenant challenges that refusal, the landlord has to defend it formally.
So they can't just ignore the email.
Exactly. But what the guide is doing isn't suggesting landlords break the law. It's showing them how to use the existing structural definitions of an HMO to their advantage.
Okay, how so?
Well, an HMO inherently involves shared uncontained space. That's the definition. So the guide is teaching landlords how to map those structural realities onto the new legal framework to justify a refusal.
Wow.
They are literally using the architecture of the house as their legal defense.
That is incredibly clever. Which brings us to an even thornier issue. Because managing the friction of a golden retriever in a shared kitchen is one thing, but managing human tenants without violating strict anti-discrimination laws is a completely different level of complexity.
Oh, entirely.
Moving through the guide, the most delicate tightrope landlords are walking right now is what I would call the discrimination minefield.
It is undoubtedly the most complex and legally perilous part of the entire playbook.
Yeah, the rules are strict.
Very. The Renters' Rights Act, when combined with the existing Equality Act 2010, makes it unequivocally illegal to reject an applicant simply because they claim housing benefit or universal credit.
Okay.
It is also illegal to reject them because they have children or because they rely on a service animal.
But the property managers immediately pivot to a workaround.
Of course they do.
The playbook explicitly tells its clients, quote, "That doesn't mean you can't maintain standards."
Right.
It advises that landlords can still require strict affordability checks and demand guarantors. But the phrase that really jumped out at me was this. They advise that landlords can still advertise a property as suitable for professionals,
Yes, that phrase.
but only if it reflects what they call lifestyle compatibility. They give examples like wanting a quiet household or requiring shared working routines among the roommates.
Right. And to understand this, we have to look at what the guide calls the management reality of a house in multiple occupation.
The management reality.
Think about the physical constraints here. You have 5 unrelated adults living in one house,
Sounds like a sitcom.
or a nightmare. They are sharing one boiler for hot water, one kitchen to cook their meals, and one internet router.
Right.
Their daily physical routines inevitably collide.
Oh, anyone who has ever lived in a shared house knows the universal nightmare of the roommate who takes a 45-minute hot shower at 7 a.m.
Every single day.
Or the person who works the night shift and decides to blend a protein smoothie at 3 in the morning.
Exactly. It is highly relatable human friction.
Very relatable.
The guide notes that mixing working professionals who are out of the house from 9 to 5 with tenants on benefits who might be home all day invariably amplifies this friction.
Oh, I see where this is going.
It leads to unequal gas and electricity usage, noise conflicts during the day when shift workers are trying to sleep, and disputes over hygiene and cooking times. From the property manager's perspective, these aren't inherently discrimination issues.
They're operational liabilities.
Exactly. They lead to endless complaints, high turnover, and skyrocketing utility costs.
And their solution to this incredibly human, messy roommate drama is entirely technocratic.
It really is.
The guide suggests installing smart meters to constantly monitor utility usage and adding strict fair usage clauses into the tenancy agreements.
Yeah.
They are literally trying to manage human behavior and roommate etiquette through infrastructure and contract clauses.
It's a fascinating attempt to just quantify human habits.
But I have to ask the uncomfortable question here.
Okay.
Isn't lifestyle compatibility just a legally polite, PR-friendly way of screening out benefit claimants?
It's a fair question.
I mean, if you mandate a quote-unquote shared working routine, you are implicitly excluding anyone who doesn't commute to an office. Where's the actual line between a management reality and unlawful discrimination?
That is the exact tightrope they are walking. And the legal distinction hinges entirely on intent and application.
Okay, explain that.
Well, if a landlord issues a blanket statement saying no benefit claimants allowed, that is unlawful discrimination, period.
Right, highly illegal.
However, if a landlord says, this specific 5-bedroom house is currently occupied by 4 night shift nurses, therefore we are seeking a 5th tenant who aligns with a daytime sleeping, night working routine. That is legally defensible lifestyle compatibility.
I see. That's a very fine line.
An incredibly fine legal line. The guide is instructing landlords to rely heavily on the math.
Meaning the affordability checks and the guarantors.
Yes. And the documented lifestyle rhythms of the existing housemates rather than focusing on the source of the applicant's income.
So they focus on the routine, not the money source.
Precisely. Property managers are banking on comprehensive documentation, reviewing their mortgages, their local council licenses, and their insurance clauses to ensure that the criteria they use to select tenants are legally defensible if they are ever challenged in court.
It is absolutely fascinating to see how a grand change in a legal document debated in Parliament eventually trickles down into a fair usage clause on a smart meter in a shared kitchen in Leeds.
It's all connected.
It really highlights how deeply interconnected all of this is. So to you listening, why does all of this matter?
That's the big question.
Right. Whether you are a renter who is incredibly excited to finally ask for a pet and exercise your brand new legal rights this spring, or perhaps you're on the other side.
A property investor.
Exactly. A property investor agonizing over those 1,000-pound setup costs and installing smart meters just to keep the peace.
It affects everyone.
It does. This deep dive reveals the hidden gears of the housing market. Next time you are scrolling through property listings and you see the phrase suitable for professionals, you now know exactly the complex legal and financial calculus operating behind those 3 words.
And looking at those hidden gears brings us to one final critical thread to unravel from this playbook.
Okay, what is it?
Towards the end of the guide, it briefly mentions a new administrative requirement. Right.
Under the Renters' Rights Act, All landlords must now register themselves and their properties on a new private rented sector database.
A central database.
Yes. And they must join a formalized redress scheme. The Property Management Guide frames this simply as an administrative hurdle that they will handle on behalf of their clients.
Just paperwork to them.
Exactly. But think about the broader long-term implications of that infrastructure.
Yep.
If every single landlord and every single rental property in the country is now logged in a centralized government database, complete with a formal mandatory complaint and redress system,
Wait, I see where you're going with this.
right, does this pave the way for a radically transparent future?
Wow.
Could we be moving toward a world where landlord performance, dispute history, and property maintenance standards are entirely public?
Like completely visible to anyone.
Yes.
Ugh.
Imagine a future where you check a landlord's public rating, seeing exactly how many times they unlawfully withheld a deposit or ignored a leaking roof before you ever sign a lease. Just like looking up a restaurant review before booking a table. That would change absolutely everything.
It really would. Something to think about.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we will catch you next time.